Yeah, in the saw the link. So we're going live.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. We have an important episode for you this week. We are going to talk about a couple of bills sitting on the governor's desk that we are hoping to see him use his veto pen on before the legislature returns on April 13th, 1 week from today, in fact, for their final 2 days of session to override any vetoes they can before they adjourn for the year. So some political intrigue is happening right now as we speak. We've got Kimberly, I believe, bringing us the news we need in under 5 minutes. Then we are very excited to be bringing you an interview with Amy McGrath. We are looking forward to sharing with you what this patriot has been up to since her two campaigns that shook up the Kentucky political establishment. We are then going to close out with our action and events calendar, including a real-life in-person event that you could join Progress Kentucky for next week. So, but first, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? I think you are. You're here. That's why you're here, right? We know our Commonwealth has some work to do if we're going to beat back the red wave of bad politics and policy coming from the GOP supermajority in Frankfort, from bills to block reproductive justice to cutting taxes for the wealthy while blocking investments in our Commonwealth. We need your help. We are underwater right now in this state, and we need your help. And if you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, you need to join Progress Kentucky. We make it super easy. There's no secret code. You just need to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, kind of wherever you're spending your time on social media. When you see our content, interact with it. Like and share and comment on our posts. If you like what you're hearing right now on Kernels of Truth, give us a thumbs up, leave us a review, share out the show. If you are listening on a podcasting platform, reviews are really, really helpful to put us up in the kind of the list. Anyway, so really exciting show. Let's go ahead and get to it. We have got our fantastic co-host to check in with. But as we have said in the past, this is not a talking heads show on the internet. This is a political protest, a virtual demonstration for a better Commonwealth. So if it's a demonstration, you better bring your protest sign. What does your protest sign say today? My name's Aaron. I'm coming to you from Lexington, a little community just at the edge of the growth boundary called Chilesburg. Lots of grayish vinyl siding. If you want to find my neighborhood, just drive around till you see a sea of vinyl siding. That's me. All right. And my sign today says, country over party. I tell you what, our guest really nailed that sentiment, and I think it's going to be an important one for our country in the days to come. All right, that's me. How about Nate coming back to us for after a bit of an absence? You might be muted.
Sorry about that. These newfangled computers, they're just so hard to use. Yes, it's Nate Orshan coming back live and direct from Kit's in my home here in South Frankfort. Just a stone's throw from the Capitol building. And this week, well, first of all, I want to say I love that country over party. That works for me. That should be one of my first tattoos if I ever get a tattoo. But my sign today is going to say, hey, keep your guns out of our Commonwealth courtrooms. More on that in a bit.
Ooh, yeah, intriguing. I love it. I love a good teaser sign. Excellent. And I saw her pop on for a second, always keeping us on the edge of our seat.
Kimberly!
Our friend Kimberly, I think you might be muted. Kimberly, I think you're muted.
Come on down, Kimberly. Woohoo!
Still muted.
Now it's a party, a quiet party, but a party.
What would you all do without my shenanigans, right?
We, keeping us on our toes.
You all are so silly.
Coming to us from the sunken living room. I love it. What's going on with you, Kimberly? You got a sign for us?
I sure do. Hold on for one moment while I go get it.
Oh, she has to go get the sign.
Dun, 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 dun. I'm always good for Mission Impossible in the middle of nowhere. Oh, I see.
Oh man, you got to turn off that digital background because I don't know what it says. I cannot see.
You done made yourself invisible.
You all are not even right.
We can't see it because of this
digital
background.
It says Congress. It took me all week to make it. Congress, you work for us.
Oh,
yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay, can you see it now?
Nope.
You're making yourself invisible.
Nope, but it makes you disappear when you hold it up. So just so you know, I feel like I saw some of it. I believe you that it's there.
Congress, you work for us.
I love that. You need it on a sign. You need it to tattoo it on their forehead because they don't seem to remember that very often.
Yeah, and also, Kentucky legislators, you work for us.
You work for us.
Again, I don't know that they're aware. So we need to maybe beat them over the head with that sign. All right, cool. Let's jump into news of the week because it was a week for news, and I think Nate has the first story, which I'm very excited to hear about.
Oh, all right. Well, I hope it lives up to it. So here is a recent quotation for you from this past Monday, April 4th, coming from District Court Judge and former police officer David Bowles. Quote, "The last thing we need is guns in the courthouse," unquote. So the occasion for this quotation was a press conference just outside of the Hall of Justice in Louisville, in which, according to the Courier-Journal, quote, "about 30 judges, victims advocates, prosecutors, and deputy sheriffs gathered," unquote, basically to ask Governor Beshear to please do a line item veto to an amendment to House Bill 690. At issue is an amendment to the bill which otherwise deals with stuff like establishing who gets to be on the Judicial Council. And there's also this section that was there already, which allows a bunch of people already associated with the judicial system to legally have concealed firearms in court. So even before this amendment was inserted, you could already bring a concealed gun. It was legal if you were a Commonwealth's or a county attorney, even one who's retired, a judge or justice, again, even one who's retired, or a retired police officer. Any of these categories of people already could bring and wear a concealed firearm legally in any Kentucky courtroom. And I'm guessing police or peace officers are also somehow accounted for, although I didn't see them on the list, but I'm not a lawyer, so maybe I'm not reading so good. However, what this new amendment would do is add to the list the Attorney General, any of their attorney employees, and here's the kicker, any attorney, quote, licensed to practice law in the Commonwealth, unquote. So this amendment to HB 690 would allow any Kentucky licensed lawyer to show up and sit in the gallery and be packing. But, this is Kentucky, where wearing a concealed firearm is seemingly considered as sacrosanct as standing for the national anthem. So, hey, what's the big deal about making it okay, not just for anybody, but, for lawyers to be fully loaded, armed and dangerous, packing some heat? Okay, I ran out of cliches, but you get the idea. If a judge can concealed carry, why not any rando lawyer? Well, let's see what some of these folks quoted in the Courier-Journal article said. Quote, "Domestic violence victims are already fearful of coming to court," noted Cassie Drochtelman, hope I pronounced that correctly, the interim executive director for the Mary Byron Project. Quote, "Imagine knowing the lawyer for your abuser has a gun on his hip," unquote, she said. And then there's District Judge Stephanie Pierce Burke, who told the Courier-Journal that, quote, "there are too many scenarios that could go wrong," unquote, including a disgruntled client taking a gun from their lawyer and using it in the courtroom, another unquote. And I'll repeat what court judge and former police officer David Bowles said at the start of my rant: the last thing we need is guns in the courthouse. So what kind of yahoo wants anybody who just passed the bar to be able to bring their secret little peacemaker to court with them? Why, that would be Republican Senator Johnny Turner from Harlan, whose measure was, quote, snuck through in the dead of night, unquote, without hearing or debate, per Senate Minority Leader Morgan McGarvey in that same Courier-Journal article. Yes, Senator Turner filed it on March 25th, just 4 days before the bill was voted on by the full Senate, and apparently it seems to have gone completely unnoticed until, like, now? In an email to the Courier-Journal, Senator Turner said that, quote, attorneys as officers of the court should have the same right to protect themselves as prosecutors and judges. He also suggested it is hypocritical for judges who have the right to carry anywhere to deny their protection to others, unquote. Same. If Senator Turner was really, did I just cut out for a second? I saw my picture bleed. Could you still hear me? I can't hear you. Okay, good. Heads are nodded. So sorry, live cast, folks, live and direct. So if Senator Turner was really concerned about hypocrisy, he could have done the opposite and inserted a measure that removed the ability for judges and prosecutors and even retired police officers to bring their effing guns into an effing courtroom. But no, this is just another sad example of a Kentuckian who won't be happy until every last one of us is walking around funny because we all have high caliber guns strapped to our ankles and thighs. And yes, for the record, Governor Beshear, please veto this, huh? Thank you. Kernels of Truth, I'm Nate Orshan.
Yeah, we are. I put it in the comments. We are a gun crazy Commonwealth. And I just think that is, it's just a horrible idea, right? I guess there's no problem that can't be solved with yet another gun in the forum. I don't know. Kimberly, any thoughts on that one?
No, I'm going to pass on this one today.
Okay.
I think Nate did an absolutely fabulous job informing us, letting us know what's going on. And once again, when you live in the state of Kentucky, I don't think you can get shocked anymore.
Right. It's only shocking when they show some restraint, really, I think, at this point. All right, so I'm going to jump into a story that I think is pretty important. I think it's important because, I came to politics primarily because I see it as the only path towards a sustainable, kind of clean future for our planet. Unfortunately, right? So science and informed consumer choices are critical, but if we are going to ensure that science is heard and acted upon, and that corporations are constrained to the point that all the choices that are in front of consumers are in fact sustainable and responsible, we really need political leadership to put us on the path to clean energy and corporate responsibility. Unfortunately, we live in Kentucky, where the GOP supermajority enthusiastically responded to the climate crisis by passing SB 205. And this is from our friends at the Kentucky Conservation Committee. This is the energy boycott bill that will have the state track and divest from companies that participate in energy boycotts. And it allows the attorney general or the treasurer to bring civil action to enforce the act. All right. So predictably, the GOP supermajority has this issue exactly backwards, right? So financial institutions right now are in fact divesting from fossil fuels because they are seen as risky investments, right? As municipalities and utilities, states and nations, in fact, seek to prioritize and incentivize clean energy development, major investments in fossil fuel companies create exposure for shareholders, right? So if you're dumping a bunch of money in kind of fossil fuel only companies, yet the world is moving to renewable energy, you are going to have some stranded assets, right? You are, in fact, creating some very significant risk for your shareholders, right? But that's not how, Kentucky sees it. We've got Robbie Mills, Ralph Alvarado, Gerald Carpenter, I believe, a few other proud members of the Senate Flat Earth Club would like to respond to this financial entities responsibly protecting their investors by ensuring that Kentucky is never in that club, and that whenever possible, wherever possible, we are investing in the most gung-ho fossil fuel portfolios possible. Rational leaders understand that coal is Kentucky's past, not its future. We need to support the transition of coal communities to clean energy jobs, not prop up a dying industry. The existence and passage of SB 205 shows once again the irresponsible inability of the Republican Party to acknowledge and address the realities of climate change. I truly hope the governor sends a clear message that some among Kentucky's political leadership understand the critical nature of this threat and uses his veto pen on SB 205. Of course, the timing couldn't be more glaring or galling, with the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, just last week releasing critical reports showing the urgent need to act. The governor really needs to scrutinize that most recent IPCC report to direct his environmental and cabinet leadership to act immediately, which, of course, Kentucky hasn't been a leader whatsoever. There are a few opportunities to get on the right path. I think they need to take them. If folks remember, we had Adam Edlin on this show, in the past. I don't really remember how long ago it's been, but he talked a lot about how you can use kind of coal areas, reclaim coal mines, coal fields rather, and turn them into clean energy spaces, right? So some really impressive solar investments that are happening in Eastern Kentucky. But that only happens if it's prioritized and it's supported. And right now, our legislature is sending a very clear message that nope, we are coal uber alles here in Kentucky. Of course, if you're thinking that maybe it's just Frankfurt, maybe other Republicans are responsible on climate change. Here is a very related news item from this week. So the House Oversight Committee in Washington, D.C. held a hearing on the U.S. Postal Service and their incredibly irresponsible move to make just 10% of their new delivery vehicles electric, with the vast majority of the federal government's largest fleet being replaced with heavy, dirty delivery vans that get about 9 miles per gallon. These are their new vehicles would get 9 miles per gallon, right? They've designed them so they're like a pound heavier than the light duty cutoff so they can get away with such horrible gas mileage. Meanwhile, the rest of the industry, Amazon, UPS, and others are dumping a ton of money into electrifying their fleets. So the U.S. Postal Service would again be kind of the Neanderthal and also a huge missed opportunity, right? So the EPA and the White House Council on Environmental Quality oppose the U.S. Postal Service's move. As we remember, DeJoy, horrible guy, not sure why he still has the job, but he is, spearheading this effort to make sure that the U.S. Postal Service new fleet is as fuel inefficient as possible. So House Dems held a hearing to try to get some information about that flawed analysis the U.S. Postal Service used to show they couldn't transition to EVs. Kentucky's own James Comer is on that committee. And how did he use his time on the committee? He used his time to drag Hunter Biden into the congressional record yet again. Hunter Biden, during a hearing to discuss the environmental impacts of the U.S. Postal Service's vehicle transition. What a joke. The unavoidable reality is that climate change is here. It's having an impact. It's a bad impact. And unless we want to, try to make our future in a burning hellscape of desperate refugees and water wars, we cannot put Republicans in charge of any decision-making bodies at the local, state, or federal level. SB 205 proves they are not up to the challenge of our time, which is tackling climate change. That's my take on it, at least. All right, so that's my story. Anyone have any thoughts about climate change and how Kentucky Republicans are totally inadequate to the task?
I've got something to say. Okay, with everything going on right now between Russia and the Ukraine, which is actually becoming this worldwide situation. And so President Biden has said that we were going to go into our reserves, all of that. Isn't this the time that people that were climate change deniers say, you know what? I'm so sorry we didn't get things taken care of before this catastrophe. then we wouldn't have to worry about Russia and their oil. Am I correct on that, Aaron?
No, that's exactly right. I mean,
Mhm.
the national security implications for getting off oil, put the environment aside. If you just want to make sure our nation is kind of more insulated from these international bad actors like, OPEC and OPEC Plus, which is Russia, like get off oil. And if you transition to electrifying everything, which again, you can people like Thomas Massey is a big fan of electric vehicles because he knows you can just fire all the power plants on coal and then run on your EV on a coal-fired power plant. Obviously, it's really important that we also make the grid cleaner, and that's something that we also want to see action here in Kentucky because we still have a very coal-heavy grid. But in other states, they are leading the charge and transitioning from natural gas and coal to solar and wind and hydropower and all sorts of other ways of getting renewable clean energy into our electrical system. So, but yeah, is that other thoughts on that, Kimberly?
The only thing that I can actually say is a lot of times we seem to be reactive instead of proactive. If everybody would just jump on board and know that this would create more jobs, the sustainability of it is like forever, right? And also, people don't really know about all of the tax breaks for having solar powered roofs and things of this nature when you are turning your house green, as they call it, quote unquote. So there are benefits to the average consumer where we don't need all of that, because I understand what the young people are feeling right now. They're scared and they're afraid that there will not continue to be a planet for them to live on. So it's everybody's responsibility to move into it. Most of us have moved into recycling. We have one plastic bin that's for the recyclables, and then you have the other bin for just regular trash that they can make into other things as well. So it took a while for us to get there, like, oh, okay, that plastic 7-Up bottle or whatever, let me throw that in the recycle. It can happen with persistence and everybody buying into it. And the main thing that I appreciate, Aaron, is that you're making our listeners, our viewers aware that this is a problem. And if they don't get it by now, will we ever get it? Oh, that's a song. If you know.
That was wonderful. Yeah, no, it's definitely a song. At this point, it's a very sad song, right? So I mentioned that IPCC report, now or never. If the world is going to stave off climate disaster, we are on a trajectory right now to shoot past that 1.5 Celsius increase in overall average temperature. And that's where our planet remains habitable, if we can keep it to 1.5, right? But when we shoot past that, we are going to, seriously, it's going to be a hellscape. And it's not like, oh, off in the future. It is going to be, hopefully in my, not, all right, so that sounds wrong. It could be my lifetime. I don't want to see that. I want to see significant changes. But as I said in my piece, the Republicans won't ever do it. Right now, there's some good news in that IPCC report, like the cost of solar and hydro, solar and wind have dropped precipitously, right? So it's so much cheaper to make the transition, but we have these political forces that have locked us in, and the Kentucky, locked us in, or they're locked in, or they're trapped in amber because politically this is where they came from, is this kind of fossil fuel world. And it's not like Kentucky's alone. Louisiana, their commitment to oil and gas, many other states, all these states that have big investments in oil or gas or other fossil fuels, they want to keep those jobs. They want to keep it, but you nailed it, Kimberly. There are more jobs in making that transition, and it's not like a coal miner, is committed to coal. The guy wants to work. And if we can transition the communities in a way that is, I think, thoughtful, people can have better jobs. And just read about a coal miner who died, trapped underground, and it's not like the coal company's taking care of his widow. His family is totally screwed because they do nothing for them, right? So it's not like it's just a
It would
matter of
get
having
rid of
good
black
jobs.
lung, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So that even if you didn't die in the mine, you might be carrying the legacy of that work for a long time. Right. So, and I don't know. I think it's scary to me on a lot of levels, because I've got two daughters that I want to see, have the opportunities that I had. But those opportunities are they're fading rapidly. It's just going to be droughts and forest fires. And it will, if you think the refugee crisis right now is untenable, right? Like all Republicans talk all about, refugees swarming our borders. You have seen nothing yet. Just wait until, these kind of drought and forest fire fueled displacements really pick up, which they will if there's not action. And I don't want to make it too horrific or too frightening, but, something needs to wake people up. And we cannot keep electing Republicans and expecting the worst case scenario to be avoided. And this soapbox moment, depressing soapbox moment, brought to you by Aaron Viles. All right, so hopefully we have some better news. I don't know. Do you have any better news, Kimberly? Do you have anything in there?
Yes, I do have a little bit of better news, and I can tell that you're very passionate about that, as all of us should, gear up and get a little bit more passionate about the earth that we live upon. And I don't like to be called a conspiracy theorist, but I will say this. All of the rich people are now being able to go up into space, right? Things that have never happened before. Why is it they don't care about their grandchildren and great-grandchildren and themselves? Okay. So, are they building like another planet up there for them? What the ham sandwich is going on? I'd like to know. What do you think, Nate? Aaron?
Oh dear. It's not well thought through, right? It's just, guys with money do white guy. Let's be very specific here. White guys with money doing what they do, which is to trying to one up one another. The latest thing is space. It could be anything. There's also there's a lot of like I want to live foreverism in that set too. So a lot of them spend a lot of money on these crazy schemes about like cryogenically freezing their corpses so that when the future their robot doctors can wake them up and somehow reanimate them and this, that, and yeah. It's just yeah. No, I wrote a whole song about it, but I won't play it today.
They're living with pipe dreams. So are you ready for the news? Can we share that
song on our Facebook page though, so people can hear it?
It's called "Stay in Your Spaceship." I'll see. I don't have a good version, but I have one. I'll find something. Yeah.
All right. Got to be a SoundCloud. You got to have a SoundCloud, right, Nate?
Well, it's. I haven't given it the justice it deserves, but I have a live version somewhere.
I heard it. I think I heard it played live at the.
Yes, you did.
You did. Festival or Heartwood Music Festival.
Yeah.
All right. So we should probably get moving on, because we do want to get to the Amy McGrath interview. But I know that Kimberly has some stories that she is going to share with us.
Yes, very quickly, Aaron and ladies and gentlemen. Just want to talk a little bit about Mitch McConnell. He does not want 30 million children fed. It's getting ridiculous when we're talking about SNAP benefits. Those are the food stamp benefits. As you well know, right here in our own state, they are taking away a lot of the benefits that are for those, as we would know, the least of these, the least of us, right? And, if you can't help your brother or your sister, and I'm talking about all of us on this earth are connected. We're all like vines connected on a branch. So whatever happens to you, it happens to me as well. And right now, we have to help people. People have gone through a lot, and Mitch McConnell shows once again how he does not give a for anybody but himself. Plus, the way he's been looking lately looks a little bit like his days may be limited as well. So the evilness, Darth Vader, what else did we call him? The Night Stalker. What else did we call him? The Grim Reaper. Yes. And he really enjoyed that name. So I don't know anybody in my circle of friends or acquaintances that would like to be called the Grim Reaper. Also, want to talk about today, our wonderful governor, Andy Beshear, vetoed several bills today. He aimed at two of them particularly, and we're talking about education's most controversial topics this year, which is the transgender student athletes and critical race theory. So this was Senate Bill 1, and our governor actually wrote in his veto message that it represents a step backward for public education in the Commonwealth. But also, he is saying these other rules and things of this nature, the only county that it will really affect, saying that the school board only meet once a month, that the superintendent would also be involved with that and have power in the school board situation. Our governor said it. He said you're attacking Jefferson County, period. There's no other county that this really would pertain to. Then also of the fairness campaign, Aaron, what's his last name?
Chris Priest?
Hartman.
Yes, my buddy Chris Hartman. He says there's only one individual that he knows of that maybe was a transgender on a school athletic team. But Chris Hartman also said this is just another blow again, according to the Courier Journal, which is here in Louisville. Chris also said in Kentucky's entire school system, there is only one openly transgender girl that they know about who is playing a school sport. And so Chris Hartman also said this as well, kind of piggybacking on what our governor said. Hartman said, but rather than tackle any of the state's real issues, legislators, and I know we're talking about the Republicans, decided to use their time and power to bully students and others like her. So the Family Foundation issued a statement as well, expressing disappointment over Governor Andy Beshear's veto. And one reason why he did veto the transgender sports bill that starts from like the 6th grade all the way up to the 12th grade is because he said that they did not present to him information, factually based, researched information that truly trans girls could not play in sports for girls. And also the ramifications of the mental heartache that would ensue if that bill was able to go. But lawmakers will likely have a tighter vote on the Senate Bill 1, which was initially aimed at the school councils before ballooning to cover other topics. Just like anything they want that's going to harm people the most, this is what they want. So you could ask me, where do I stand on transgender girls playing in sports? I really can't tell you where I stand on that right now because these are new issues. I have not researched it enough. I know there was a lot about that young lady. I think that was in the Olympics, that she had beat every record there ever was, but they come back on her and say, hey, she's transgender. Did that have something to do with it? So I think on a conversation like this, doctors need to be brought in, psychiatrists, psychologists need to be brought in, sociologists, anthropologists, they need to be brought in to get a clear understanding of why it should happen or why it shouldn't happen. And leave you on this note. Yeah, it may sound a little sad for some of us, but maybe in Washington, they're getting something together. And I'm talking about right now in Kentucky, the bill about medicinal cannabis, marijuana, marriage, whatever you want to call it, is dead right now. And we talked about this week before last, I believe. And it's just not going to go anywhere before session is up. However, at the federal level, it has passed the House for legalizing marijuana. So hopefully it will pass the Senate, and then Kentucky won't have a choice. How you like that, Republicans? Back to you, Aaron.
Hey, thanks, Kimberly. So yeah, on the trans, I was very glad to see the governor issue those vetoes. And by see that, I saw it when you announced it just now, Kimberly. So thank you so much for sharing that news. Yeah, I think that it was really important that he vetoed the trans sports ban. And that NCAA swimming, issue. A lot of folks were weighing in without having any understanding of hormone replacement therapy or any of the rules that the NCAA have for trans athletes. But you can't just say you're a man and compete among the women, right? There's some pretty significant rules in place. And let's not pretend that like Chris said, one kid wants to play with their friends, play sports with their friends. At the high school level, I don't think there needs to be any rules, really. In fact, let's just get rid of gender completely in high school sports. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I want my daughters playing football, but
no.
I don't know. I mean,
you know what? Everybody needs to look at the comedian Earthquake. Okay. Dave Chappelle has some type of an agreement with Netflix, and it's like Dave Chappelle Presents, and it's going to be different comedians. And the very famous comedian Earthquake, you all got to watch it on Netflix. You will laugh so much you have tears coming out of your eyes. He said these kids today are soft. They are not built like us. He said, you tell your child to go outside, they think it's a punishment. You put a helmet, you put elbow pads and knee pads on your child to ride a bike, and you say, are you riding a bike or are you playing football? He said his son was outside in the backyard and he fell in the grass and got a concussion. He said, but you want to know how to really get these kids in line? Take away their Wi-Fi. They will pay attention to what you say. So, no, I'm along with Earthquake. I don't believe in everybody gets an award. There's no losers. I don't believe that we should stop having, NCAA women's team, NCAA men's team.
I didn't say that. What'd you say? I didn't say that. I said high school sports, up to high school sports. I say get rid of gender.
Even in high school sports, because that is going to prepare you for life. Life is not always great every day.
Prepare you for, yeah, right. I don't know. Anyway, it was a flip comment, but I will say this. I don't think
everybody
the amount of kind of storm and drag the fire and brimstone that's being thrown about trans girls playing sports is anything that's worth our time and energy, right? I mean, it's if kids want to play sports, they should play sports. And I think at the NCAA level, they've got rules in place, and those rules are being followed. I think they're legitimate at that level because but otherwise, I think we just should let kids play
real
sports.
Quick. My other thing is this as well: critical race theory. Why does Black history have to be a whole other name, right? I mean, we don't have courses in white history. We don't have courses okay, you're taking Indian history or Asian history. So why do Blacks in America have to have this thing called critical race theory? I'm with my friend Gay Adelman on this. All history matters because it's what makes us who we are today. Had a conversation with someone last night that told me that the Holocaust was much worse than slavery. I'm not going to compare the two. I'm not going to compare the two, but I can say that Black people were enslaved in this country for hundreds of years. I can say that I am ADOS, African descendant of a slaves, okay? And most of us, 97% of us, we don't know where the hell we came from. We don't know what tribe we came from. And people put on the African outfits, you know, with the patterns and everything. Hell, most of us are wearing the wrong pattern because each tribe had its own pattern to wear. Can you imagine living your life not knowing where you come from? Not knowing what tribe you came from? Not knowing anything before your great-great-grandmother, mine was born a slave. So, you know, I can't compare the two at all, but I can say this. America better be repenting on a lot of stuff because it's getting real bad out here. And I've been on this earth 54 years. And since I was 7 years old, I've been involved in politics because of my mom. I mean, like I wasn't like, I was sitting in the chair, being scared if my mom was going to smack me in front of everybody, right? But even my young mind was paying attention. Everything is different. There's no protocols. There's no gentleman agreements anymore. There's no camaraderie. There's no walking across the aisle. All they want to do is keep us sick, uneducated.
We just lost your mute.
They want to keep us uneducated, sick, divisive. Okay, that's the whole agenda. It's an agenda. Yeah. And people out there need to realize that's why we need everybody's help and send their money to Progress Kentucky because it's getting wicked.
We absolutely.
I'm sorry I went on that tangent.
That was a bit of a bit of a turn. But I love it when you get fired up. Absolutely want to hear your thoughts. So I think we will put a pin in the conversation about high school sports and whether there should be genders or not. But
wait, now it's my turn.
Just kidding. But I think a lot of the issues, some of the stuff you just touched on are things that we are going to talk about with our guest. That idea of the partisanship and the fact that there's no one willing to walk across the aisle, that's a real problem. And we're very fortunate to be bringing to you an interview with somebody who was equally inspired by that reality that that no one was putting country before party. So Annabelle, you got that queued up?
Really excited to bring this week's guest to you. She needs no introduction, but I'm going to say a few words anyway. Since bursting on the Kentucky political scene in 2018, she has been an unavoidable face and force in the political landscape of our state. She's a retired Marine aviator, the first woman to fly on a combat mission for the Marines. She's also a foreign policy expert, teaching at a few different institutions, UK, I believe, and the Naval Academy. She has served at the Pentagon, at the State Department, since she was last on our show, back when we were the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. She has started 2 political PACs and written a book. Welcome, Amy McGrath.
Hey, good to be with you.
Thanks so much for taking the time. So after coming tantalizingly close to beating the incumbent Andy Barr in 2018, Trump's one and only midterm election, and then fairly quickly throwing your hat into the ring to take on the evil emperor himself, Mitch McConnell. What led you to stay active in politics, kind of as you are right now, with I think 2 PACs, as I mentioned? Why stay involved in Kentucky's politics?
Well, it's staying involved in our nation's politics, which is the most patriotic thing you can do right now. And the same thing that led me to get out of the military, to jump into politics, to run in 2018, the same thing that inspired me to run in 2020 is the same reason I'm still in politics today. And that is that our country needs people who care about our democracy and are going to defend it. And we can, there's lots of ways we can do that, but it's not, in my feeling is that it's not good enough to just, throw up your arms and be like, oh, I really wish things were different. You have to do something. And that, to me, in the last 4 or 5 years has meant something beyond just voting. It's meant running. It's meant being active. It's meant for the 2018 cycle, for the 2020 cycle, obviously I was a candidate, and that was pretty big. That was pretty active. But now it's supporting others who are running. Look, it wasn't in the cards for me here in Kentucky. It wasn't in the cards in Kentucky 6. And it wasn't in the cards in this deeply red state, even against a man I really wish wasn't in the Senate. But I can't just say, okay, well, it's over, because it was never just about me. It was about our country. And there is more work to be done. And the 2022 cycle is right here upon us. 2024 is coming up. And there's other people we need to get behind and support.
Yeah. So is that kind of like both PACs are doing that type of work? Is that what they're up to?
They do a couple different things, and I'm about ready to launch into another initiative as well. But the first is Honor Bound. It's more of a sort of a positive support people who have character and integrity, who have served this country to get into politics. And I'm putting my focus behind women. Why women? Women are only 25% of the legislature of our country, and that's just not good enough. So we need to continue to support women. And so that's what Honor Bound does. It's there to inspire and support women who have served the country, not just as military veterans. There's lots of ways to serve the country. Our criteria is you've served somehow in federal service, or AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, something along those lines, because to me, that shows that you can put something above yourself, and you're able to understand. I just don't want people that have maybe grown up within, one political party and don't see anything else. We want people that have been able to say, okay, it's about our country. And so that's what Honor Bound does. And then there's Democratic Majority Action, which is, a lot of people don't know this, but when the results came in the 2020 election for my campaign in November, we didn't just give up. We rolled our entire operation over into the Georgia races. And we did that by formulating Democratic Majority Action and really pushing our entire finance operation. In the process, in the next 5 weeks or whatever, raising over $1 million for those Georgia candidates, and really happy about that, because it did make a difference. Those candidates were depleted in funds, and they didn't have much time to get what they needed for the get out to vote for the special election that they had. It was so important, by the way, whose results came out on January 6th. Of 2021, a day that unfortunately we think of differently. But when that happened in January 6th, when our Capitol was breached and we had the insurrection happen, I made the decision at that point not to take that super PAC down, but to keep it running, and to keep it running to go and oust these members of Congress who were behind the January 6th insurrection. Because that was so heinous of a thing to have done. We need to get rid of them, the ones that can be defeated. So that's what Democratic Majority Action has been doing, and it's what it continues to do today. And then I have another initiative that I am working on right now that works on Secretary of State races around the country, because right now Donald Trump is trying to get back into office in 2024. He had the path that he tried to use was to bully secretaries of state to throw out results that were not in his favor, and that didn't work. But it's very scary what he tried to do, and anybody should look up and listen to the tapes of him berating the Secretary of State in Georgia, and it's really shocking. And he's trying to insert his people into these key roles around the country in key states, and it's happening. And those of us who, are Democrats are really just pro-democracy people. we all sort of sit back and we're like, well, they'll never do that. They could never try that, right? We've said that over and over and over again for like the last 5-6 years. And I feel like this is something that no one's really working on right now, that we have to make sure these election deniers do not get into these key positions. And that could very well happen, because in 2024, that's his path.
Yeah. We had backstops, right? In the fact that we had seemingly rational actors, even in Republican seats, right? The one you mentioned, of course, the Georgia tapes, I think were shocking to hear, the pressure that was being applied and the clear illegality that he was embracing in his efforts to win that. And, I'm really glad to see you stay engaged in this space, because I think you have a powerful biography. You have a sense of why you're doing it. You just shared with us that I think is, it's not partisan, right? And you ran with that country over party kind of message. And I know, interest of full disclosure, I worked for Amy's 2018 campaign. So I was really honored to be able to kind of work on that effort in the 6th district. And you've never varied in your kind of like messaging of why you're doing this and what you want to accomplish out of it, which isn't about partisan gains as much as obviously you're a Democrat, you're comfortable being a Democrat. There are policies that, as Democrats, we would like to see brought forward, but there's that sense that there's something bigger, and I don't think that there is that across the board in our political landscape right now.
It is bigger. And the thing is, my whole life, I've always been about small d democracy. Like, look, here's the thing. You may want free college. Okay, great. Do the people that you're representing want that or not? Okay, if they do, great. If they don't, fine. And I'm a believer in elections. I didn't get elected in Kentucky. The people wanted Mitch McConnell again. Okay, great. I mean, there's nothing. I believe in that. I believe that if you lose an election, you lost an election. You don't try to go back and claim that there's fraud or corruption. This is something that they do in Belarus. This is what autocrats do. Okay. And it's very, very serious. And people that think, oh, this can't happen here. I mean, just watch what they attempted to do in 2020. Watch what they're trying to do now. And we never thought we would get to the point where, oh my God, we have to engage in a Secretary of State race in Arizona because we just want somebody there with integrity who's going to count the votes correctly. Yeah, we do. We have to do that right now. There is, and it's not just happening around this country, but globally, there is a big anti-democracy movement that's been going on for a while. And those of us who are patriots that love freedom, that love democracy, have to stand up and go against those forces.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's very sad to see Viktor Orban.
Showing us the way. They're the ones out there showing us the physical way to stand up to the violence that's happening in Ukraine against the authoritarian forces of the Russian government. Here in America, there are authoritarian forces that are doing what they're doing. They're not doing it in a violent way, thank God, but they are trying to subvert our electoral process, and we have to.
January 6th was pretty violent, so I think it's worth focusing on. We have got actors in this space who are comfortable encouraging an armed insurrection, right? And they'll walk it back when they get caught, but in the moment they were absolutely cheering it on.
And many of them are not even walking it back. I mean, the amount of misinformation and disinformation and people we have members of Congress just blatantly saying lies left and right now. So this is really important. Politics. I'm not a super political animal in the sense that's what I live and breathe. I do other things. I teach at University of Kentucky Patterson School. I teach a national security course, which is really more of my expertise. Lifelong expertise. I just became a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, so I'm very involved in that. The President Biden appointed me to the Board of Visitors of the Naval Academy, which is where I went to school. It's also where I taught in the political science department there. So I'm still very active in other ways. I'm on the board of the Iraq Afghanistan Veterans of America, and a couple other nonprofits as well. So, and I coach my kids soccer and baseball now. So it's busy.
Yeah, no, it sounds super busy, and we'll be respectful of your time for sure. But a couple things just to dive into. I know you are, via honor bound. You're kind of getting behind candidates, as you say, women who've served. Are there folks locally that you're getting behind? You're supporting as we were paying attention to our politics in Kentucky?
So Honor Bound, of course, is a national organization, but I have a special focus on Kentucky, and there's some amazing candidates that I am behind. Hannah Legree is somebody who's running for re-election in city council here in Lexington. Angela Evans is awesome. She is worked in AmeriCorps, served that way, and also served on the city council in Lexington, and now she's running for county attorney. So I've been behind her. Colonel Pamela Stevenson in Louisville, retired Air Force colonel. I don't give her too much trouble for being in the Air Force, but I'm 100% behind her. I think these are the types of women that we need to lead us, and that's what Honor Bound is about. That's
great. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our former co-host Denise Gray. I know she's running. Yeah. I don't know that she wasn't in the military, but are you supporting her?
I am, and I have, and she's also running for Lexington City Council, and she's great.
Yeah.
So, and I am supporting her as well.
And then, so I know your passion is this kind of international policy and kind of national security concerns and considerations. Obviously, those are front and center in a way that they aren't typically in national politics, right? I think it's a lot of that stuff just doesn't get thought of or talked about as much as it should. And clearly, President Biden has, from Afghanistan to Ukraine, has been in the thick of these kind of international issues. Obviously, he's somebody that you've been close with. I got to meet him because we brought him to Bath County for an event, a rally before the 2018.
I would say I'm close with him. I'm not sure that
you asked him to come. He came.
So. I met him once.
So you guys are super tight besties, always talking every day, texting.
Right.
How would you say things are going for him right now? What do you what's your kind of outlook
on the foreign policy scene? So I think the way this administration, and I always just say the administration because it's more than just one person, as you know. It's and this is the one thing I really love about President Biden is he has surrounded himself with competent people.
It's why is it's so sad that we're at a point where you have to give him kudos for hiring competent staff. But yes, we had 4 years of seeing the alternative.
We had 4 years of a president that hired his cronies and people that frankly didn't even know what agency. Didn't even know what the purpose of the agency was that they took over.
Backing corruption and supporting Trump, right? That's what they're all for.
Another extreme where we have a president that really has hired competent public servants who are experienced and have been in these positions at different levels. And I'm really happy about that right now because of what's happening in Ukraine with Vladimir Putin doing what he's doing. So I've been pleased with how the administration has handled this. This is a really tough position to be in because, a lot of people think, well, why can't we just stop the Russians? Why can't we just go in there and stop them from doing these terrible atrocities as much as we want to? I would love to. The fighter pilot in me wants to, believe me. But, the Russians have nuclear weapons. And they have, 8,000 of them, 4,000 of them at the ready, pointed at us. And we have to acknowledge that this is not Syria. It's not a country where you can just do whatever you want with impunity against a foe that doesn't have those types of capabilities to. And we have to be honest about that. And so the worry of escalation is very much there. And so President Biden has to walk that line of how do we defend democracy? How do we defend the Ukraine? Do whatever we can to do that against this brutal, terrible person in Vladimir Putin and the forces that he have that have really committed war crimes. And how do we make sure that this doesn't escalate? Because strategically, what Vladimir Putin probably wants at this point, because he's losing strategically, is to expand the fight to go against NATO. He would love to be able to rally his block of people in from a fight that they don't quite fully understand why Russian soldiers are dying, to a one where, okay, the West has just attacked us. So we have to be really careful about that. And I think, the Biden administration has done a tremendous job in walking that line at this point. However, there's more to be done. I think we need to keep funneling weapons in as much as we can. I think we need to keep the diplomacy going, and it's going to be General Milley said, I think yesterday, that this may be unfortunately a protracted fight. So how is he doing on that front? I mean, I think I'm so glad we have somebody in the White House who doesn't, kiss the rear end of Vladimir Putin. And that's what we had last administration, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the amazing, the fact that Putin has gotten the opposite of what he's wanted out of this, right? He's got a unified NATO. He's got, these amazing sanctions that are really cracking down. I guess that's one thing that makes me nervous is, that we've just seen how international supply chains are incredibly delicate, right? And this, this pandemic just upset everything to the point where you can't buy a used car for an, affordable price because of chips. Who knew, right? Mm-hmm. And then now we see this international food market where Ukraine and Russia are incredibly important, and the sanctions, which I think are critically, necessary, but will have ramifications that we're all going to see, play out. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the sanctions and how they're being, utilized? And should we be doing more? Or should they be targeted differently? Or what do you think about this?
Well, in terms of, so I think what a lot of people may not fully understand about sanctions is, number one, it's not a snap of a finger. You don't just turn them off and turn them on and things happen. It's not like dropping a bomb where you can have instant gratification, and see, okay, target destroyed, kind of thing. And sanctions a lot of times take a while to make happen. The other thing is that sanctions not only hurt the country that you are sanctioning, but they also hurt potentially yourself in ways that you just so eloquently described, that we're all sort of linked. Many of our partners and allies in Europe get the majority of their energy from Russia in oil and gas. And it's, you don't just turn that on and turn that off quickly. We have been trying from a national security perspective, have looked at this as a security concern in Europe for a while, in that we have sort of tried to warn some of these countries, hey, maybe not be so dependent. I'm talking about Germany. I'm talking about some of the Scandinavian countries and Eastern Europe. Maybe you shouldn't be so dependent on Russia. From their perspective, they have been dependent on Russia because, it was cheaper. Right. I mean, we're Americans. We all talk about gas prices. We're all talking about, they're the same way. They're humans. They're, they want their economy to flourish. And so you really can't fault them at that. And I feel like right now it's going to be hard because a lot of these countries are going to hurt if the decision is made to cut off Russian oil and gas. And that decision might actually come down, but it can't be just an American one. I mean, this is why it's so important to have a guy like Joe Biden as the president of the United States, because you don't bully your allies and partners. That's just not how it works. They have to decide, and they have to decide sort of as a block together that, there are certain things more important than gas prices. And we're going to help each other get through this right now. We're going to be truthful with our people about the cost of standing up to authoritarianism and standing up against standing up for the people of Ukraine and against this violence. There is a cost to it, and there's going to be a cost to it here in the United States. And if we had leaders of integrity, and I think right now we do, I'm worried about some members of Congress, but we would have leaders who would go back to their districts, back to their states, and say to people, there's going to be a cost to this, but it is worth it to stand up for freedom, to stand up against these war criminals and not let them do what they're doing in Ukraine.
Right. And then, I think it is kind of rough sledding. I mean, people are in a bad situation. As much as I think they support Ukraine, no one likes high gas prices. No one likes, inflation, which, obviously was happening pre-Ukraine. So I do think that, President Biden's midterm, which, all midterms historically aren't great for the party in power. But it seems like this is going to be an awfully tough one with, super narrow control in the House and the Senate. A lot of that stuff very much in question. And then there was just an interesting article kind of analyzing the new districts at the federal level here in Kentucky and the 6th district, which, we came so close to winning, so very close to winning. Now looks like it's a Republican plus 13 district, and that all of them are there's no competitive districts in Kentucky. We have a plus 20 Democrat where, in Louisville, but otherwise it's all like wide double digits for vote. I don't know. Like, what's your take on that? Like, is that good for our country that we've got this like amazing polarization in all of our political districts in Kentucky?
No, it's terrible for our country. It's one of the reasons I can't stand gerrymandering. It's one of the reasons I wanted to, get rid of that. And that was part of HR 1 that was passed when the new Congress came in early 2019. I would have wished I could have been a part of that to vote for that, because that would have helped our country. I've said all along, we need to rein in money in politics. We need to get rid of gerrymandering. I'd love to see voting be a national holiday, or election day, things like that to make it easier. And this is all like small d democracy stuff. It's just allowing people to have a voice, in our democracy. And a lot of people don't have a voice right now because of gerrymandering. I mean, because of this polarization, and there is not a whole lot of incentive for most members of Congress to come together and do anything with the other side. And it's terrible right now. I would say in terms of the performance of this administration and in Democrats in general going into the midterms, and I know that midterms are always hard, but I think, and I get asked this question a lot, what are Democrats doing wrong? Why can't we, message better? And, some of it is, it's really hard, when you have a party on the other side that doesn't care about the truth and hasn't cared about the truth and is willing to lie and have people with very little integrity to combat that. But I also believe Democrats need to do a better job of messaging what we have been able to get done. I mean, if you think about what Biden has been able to do with 13 seat majority in the House and like no majority at all in the Senate. I mean, essentially, it's pretty incredible. I mean, the infrastructure bill alone was something that Donald Trump tried to do I don't even know if he tried, but he talked about it for 4 years, couldn't get that. And he had the votes to do it. Like, Democrats would have gone along, and he just, President Trump couldn't stay on topic for more than 2 seconds, and he couldn't get it done. And here Biden comes in and is able to do it essentially in the first year of office. This is incredible. The unemployment rate being so low right now, the COVID relief bills that have been pushed through, getting all the vaccines done, not to mention the foreign policy stuff that's going on in Ukraine and handling all that. I mean, I really think there's a lot to be pushing. And one of the things I think about here in Kentucky, for example, with this infrastructure bill, unlike some of these other blue states, you have senators in blue states coming back, going around their state, telling people about this infrastructure bill and how it's going to help each town and location. Here in Kentucky, we got members of Congress that voted against it. but they have no problems coming back and taking credit for it. And so
every ribbon cutting, they will be there.
And so a lot of people believe that their member of Congress and our senators are the ones that are like behind this. And it's just not true. I mean, if Mitch McConnell was the Senate Majority Leader, we would not have had an infrastructure bill. I mean,
Right.
come on.
Right.
It's just, but this is where we're at. And so we have to do a better job of making sure that people know that. And I fear that isn't happening so much, not only in Kentucky, but in red states, that we're sort of at a national level, we're sort of seeding that messaging to the local members of Congress who, by and large, voted against it.
Yeah. I think the Brent Spence Bridge should be, any Democrat in Kentucky should run on that project, right? Because that is, it is one of the priority projects coming out of the infrastructure bill. And, that would, as he said, that would not have happened under a Senate run by Mitch McConnell, even though he did vote. I have to give him, he voted for it. I have to say that he voted.
Well,
for
that's true, but it wouldn't have happened had he been in charge.
Right. No, absolutely.
And
then,
he could take credit for something that was already going to pass. So let's be honest about it. And the representative up there in Northern Kentucky voted against it.
Yeah, Massey
voted against veto yesterday. I mean, we don't talk about it enough, I think, and it's it's to our detriment.
Yeah, and I think we did a full, I think we did 2 shows where we dove in on what the infrastructure bill means for Kentucky and what kind of numbers and what kind of projects, and we will revisit it, I promise you, before the midterms, as those projects are, the money is getting out the door, because I think that's always when you want to remind people, when ribbon cuttings are actually happening, we need to mobilize as much as possible to tell people that Andy Barr should not be at this event because he voted against the bill.
Exactly. And you need to have somebody there that represents the Democratic administration, because if you don't have that, then you don't have anybody there. And the other thing is, we need to be highlighting, I think every single representative in Kentucky voted against the insulin cap.
Yeah.
I mean, here we are in Kentucky. We are the number 1 state for diabetes, we're top in the country in terms of its effect on our people here in Kentucky. And all of our representatives, except for one, John Yarmouth, right, voted to keep insulin at $300 and some a vial or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
an uncapped cost, right? And making sure, it's outrageous to see that happen. And you're a good. That's a good point. Another outrageous vote that should be underscored each and every opportunity, because it's real stuff that affects people's lives, right? Mm-hmm. And I get it. People don't like Nancy Pelosi culturally in Kentucky, whatever, right? But the policies of the Democratic Party would help you. There is no way the Republican Party will ever raise the minimum wage. They just won't. So if you are working in a job that is paying you right now $10 an hour, but you deserve 15 to just get by on this economy, thank a Republican. It's easy to do in Kentucky because they're everywhere, because that's all we seem to elect. You got a supermajority of them to blame in Frankfurt. We've got an overwhelming majority of our delegation in DC, and that's the policies they bring you, right? So, get sick and die, be poor when you do it. That's kind of what they offer. And I don't understand why a poor state like Kentucky isn't able to break through on a few of these ideas from time to time, right? And we did see some of this in Frankfurt recently, right? When they tried to cut the unemployment in half, there were, Republicans in Eastern Kentucky that did break with their party to say this is a horrible idea and it's going to hurt my constituents. Mm-hmm. But that is few and far between that stuff ever happens.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough state.
All right. Well, I'm being told we need to wrap up. I want to say thank you for being so generous with your time and appreciate your ongoing engagement and commitment to helping make our country's democratic process better. I know it's thankless, but I just want to say thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you all, what you're doing, staying involved, staying active in the grassroots level, and all the stuff that you're doing around here in Central Kentucky, your listenership, for staying involved. I mean, we all are doing what we can, and that's different for everyone at different times in their lives, right? I mean, I went pretty high speed into this politics thing for about 4.5 years straight. And I'm still involved. I'm just behind the scenes, doing it in a different way. And I'm okay with that for now. So I appreciate everybody doing their part. I'm going to continue doing mine.
Awesome. Well, good luck with all of it. I hope Honor Bound pays dividends. I hope the more hold the Sedition Caucus accountable efforts work, because those folks should not be sent back to DC. That's for sure. All right. Thanks again, Amy.
All right. Take care, Aaron.
All right, bye. All right. So that was our very long interview with Amy McGrath. I'm sorry. I was going to keep it to 20 minutes, but how can you not keep talking to Amy if you've got the opportunity? She's just got a fantastic perspective. She's got a passion that's real. She's got amazing information and experience at the kind of international level. And, I really, really wish she was either my House of Representatives representative or my senator. I really do, but I'm glad she's staying in the fight. What do you guys think?
She could do both jobs because she's that good.
You are muted, Kimberly.
She really is. I keep forgetting that button. That was a great interview.
Yeah.
I honestly, I always loved talking to Amy, and it was, probably a problem when I worked for her, because I would be more than happy to blow off making volunteer phone calls to just talk shop with Amy. The opportunities they didn't happen that often. I was in, Winchester, which was not a hot spot for the McGrath campaign. She didn't come by that often. But I will say this: she, after the campaign closed in 2018, obviously she's a prolific fundraiser, right? That was why she was recruited for that Senate race, is because the Democrats knew, the Schumer knew, that if they got her to run, that they wouldn't have to put any money into it, and that she would bring her own money. And she absolutely did. She was an amazing fundraiser for that race. But what that meant is, for the House race, we were able to kind of stick around and do a bunch of data entry that most candidates just blow off because they don't have any money, they don't have any time to capture the data of all the work that they did. And we did so much work. There was a lot of data to be processed. And so in those times, she also just taught a couple classes. Some of her, she would get her staff together and, run some of the classes that she had done at the U.S. Naval Academy. So it was really just impressive to be able to hear from her all the stuff that never came up on the campaign trail, because of course your message isn't about international policy ever when you're running for Congress. But yeah, I think she's a truly, as we just saw, just a really impressive figure. I think if I look back on the 2020 race, the regret is that she was tagged as some pro-Trump Democrat, and oh, she's the pick of the DCCC or the DSC, Schumer really is forcing her on us. No, Schumer recruited her because he wanted an actual legitimate good candidate, and who in the hell else was going to take on Mitch McConnell, right? It was kind of a fool's errand to some degree. Everyone knew the path to beat McConnell with Trump at the top of the ticket was incredibly narrow. And so because she picked strategically all right, I know I'm going to have to get crossover votes to win. I'm going to need folks who are going to vote for Trump and also vote for me. So I'm not going to go out of my way to tell people what I really think about Trump. But I'm also going to try to make that path. And obviously she didn't do it. But folks who say that she wanted, Trump to be president, or all this crazy stuff that got thrown at her, that she's some crazy conservative, she's not. She just wanted to get some Trump votes.
To be clear, Schumer did not make her the candidate, right? She won fair and square. Enough Democratic Kentuckians voted for her So I mean, she was encouraged, right? But but she beat her opponents fair and square.
Yeah, no, it's like who'd have heard of Charles Booker at that point, right? No one knew who that guy was. It's great that he ran, and I loved the fact that it was a competitive race. I really did. Like, give me more democracy, right?
Oh, yeah.
But she won fair and square. Maybe it's not fair because she was able to raise a boatload of money before he even thought about getting in. But that's politics, right? So,
But one of the other things is, I'm wondering, is Chuck Schumer having conversations with Charles Booker at this time? We have to be very, very careful when we are in primary season, not to cripple our opponents of the same party. Because when you cripple them too much and you go after them too much in the primary, you've just set up the entire scenario for the opposing party, which would be the Republicans.
Right.
I just, Charles kind of came out there with the George Floyd. Okay. And he was out there. And most of those people out there, the majority were Black people, and those were a lot of his constituency. So he became sort of the wonder child with the George Floyd. However, I think Amy's great. And why is it always when they're not running? See, we've got to make women feel more comfortable about running for offices, because the same thing with Hillary. I mean, you talk to her now, she's just as laid back, chill, just say it how she means it. Amy, right there in that wonderful interview that you did, Aaron, with those great questions, Amy seemed so relaxed, and it just came off the tip of her tongue. It was no effort. But in this political climate, I think that a lot of times what we do that is wrong is we hold women to a different standard, and that's not going to work to get the best of the best out there to run for these offices. There's a lot of people that's like, oh, I don't even want to deal with that. I've been asked to run for office more times than I can tell you. And I'm like, oh, no, I just keep me behind the scenes in the communications track, but a lot of people feel that way. It's a different time. We need more women. However, we're not getting as many as we need.
Yeah. Well, when's your daughter done? She's got her tour of duty right now, right? Like, maybe you can come back and be the behind the scenes for your daughter, and we get honor bound to back your daughter.
No, her dream has always to be the deputy Secretary of State. Oh, wow. And I grew up, I was the type of person, like, if I can't be president of your organization, I don't want to be in. If I can't be captain of the cheerleading squad, I'm just not going to cheer. But she taught me something. She said, Mom, tell me who the last 3 deputy Secretary of States were. Hell, I don't know. She said, exactly. And I'm like, exactly what? She said, it's always the people behind the scenes that really have the power. The person that everyone sees all the time is basically the person that's going to get all the slack if something goes wrong, but they get all their information and the research and everything else from the people behind the scenes. And my daughter told me, I would love that type of power, and also the ability to go anywhere I want, walk anywhere I want, and nobody will know who I am.
I see that. All right, so we've gone super long. Thank you, folks, for kind of sticking around to weigh in. And I think the Amy fan club is like reestablished here for sure. But I'm going to do a quick call to action, and then I'm going to throw it to Kimberly to close. We've got a bunch of stuff that's happening right now. Some really important opportunities to have folks take action. So please, we're going to share a link in the comments. Please use this link. It's super easy. Just click through and urge the governor. As we heard, he vetoed a few bills today, but we need him to veto SB 205, which is the the energy boycott bill, where the Senate really wants to make sure that Kentucky never gets off of fossil fuels, and in fact punishes anyone who tries, and HB 690, which is the one that Nate described, which is about any lawyer can walk into a court with a gun, pack in with their peacemaker. So those are both bills that need to be vetoed. We need to up the pressure, urge the governor to do the right thing. Please take action. If we haven't, I think we can share that out. It's on our Facebook page right now. Also, the Kentucky Center for Reproductive Freedom and Planned Parenthood are calling for thousands to join them and help pack the Kentucky State Capitol to tell politicians to keep bans off our bodies. If the governor vetoes HB 3, which is the omnibus anti-abortion, Assembly is going to try to override the veto on April 13th and immediately put that law into effect. And when that happens, Kentucky will be the first state in the country to completely lose access to abortion care. This is the last chance to have your voices heard. So please plan now, ask off from work, commitments, get out of your commitments, and join folks on what is that? The 10:30 on April 13th. April 13th, 10:30. Meet out inside the Capitol, outside the House chambers, with your Planned Parenthood, your reproductive rights gear. There's an email or a website you can go to RSVP. All right. So I think that's all we're going to talk about right now, besides one more chance to help out with Progress Kentucky. So we're not messing around. We are going to make our state more politically engaged. We're going to win more progressive representation, and we've got a plan to do it, but we need your support to make our plan a reality. So please join our team. We're in need of a newsletter editor. We're some social media managers, some folks who can phone bank our members and potential volunteers to engage people in the fight for a more progressive Commonwealth. Please join us. There are a couple ways to let us know you want to get more involved. You can send an email to info@progressky.org. We'll plug you into Turning Our Commonwealth Purple, or you can actually come to meet the organizing committee. We've got an open organizing committee meeting next Monday in Lexington. We'll be at West 6th, the Lexington location, at 7 p.m. on Monday. So come on, join us, get involved. So that's what I've got, and I'm going to hand it over to my wonderful co-host, Kimberly.
Thank you, Aaron. First of all, I just want to say that was an excellent interview with Amy McGrath. She's my heart. Love that woman. She's true blue. She's not fake at all. And I always appreciate that. And I want to give a couple of shout outs to some people that have really been active in the chat. And that would be Mr. Sandy Downs, Miss Betty Weaver. I saw her. My other buddy who's out there, Miss Karen Armstrong Cummings. They have been on it today. So I just wanted to give a special shout out to them for their participation in tonight's show. So let you know that we will be back next week. Yeah. That wasn't the end of it, honey. We got a lot of stuff we have to cover. And we're going to be joined by Angela Evans. Yes, the same one that you just heard mentioned by Miss Amy McGrath. She's running for Fayette County Attorney. And all of us are so very, very interested in hearing her thoughts about criminal prosecutions in Lexington. Our disclaimer, very, very quickly, Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4, is affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, otherwise known as CAVE. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. The logo and some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. Check them on out, couchfiremedia.com. Also, we got our girl back, Miss Annabelle, and she is our social media chair, in case you all didn't know. And also, she will be at the Wendell Ford dinner this week. So sorry, all of you all, the tickets have been sold out. Our governor, our congressmen. Everybody is going to be there. So we'll take lots of pictures and post them up, Miss Annabelle and I. So thank you for tonight, always being the greatest producer. Nate was pretty good, but Annabelle, I'm glad you're back. Nate, you know I love you. So Nate, the songs that you hear, and he has so many other songs, and we're going to be coming out with a duet very, very soon. And you can catch all of that on natosongs.com. That's NATO songs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream, don't fret, my pet. You can go on our Facebook page. You could go on Instagram. You could go on Twitter. You could go on YouTube. And if you don't want to see Aaron's face, I know you all always want to see my beautiful face, but let's just say you don't want to see Aaron's face. You can listen to us on the podcast. Thank you to the crew tonight, to Mr. Nate Orshan, as I like to call him, Nate Dog, and my big brother, Aaron. Love you guys. And guess what? This week, do something nice for somebody. Imagine how you'll feel if you do that. Okay? Same time, same bat channel next week. Great guest. Be there. Until then, we'll see you.